Welcome to the All About Pigeons podcast, brought to you by the All About Pigeons nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to promoting education and promotion of the pigeon hobby. Every week, a listener requests to drive our conversations about all things pigeons. Join me, Philip Fry, as we learn and share stories about these incredible birds and this ancient hobby. Today we're going to be talking about transporting pigeons for doing releases. Today we have with us Dom McCoy. He's a race advisor and pigeon convoy. He's a lifelong generational pigeon fancier, and he's been doing convoy for at least the last 10 years. So, Dom, thanks for coming on and talking with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So can we get a little bit of background on how you got into doing convoy work?
Basically, I got into the convoy and obviously through pigeons. I was asked quite a few years back if I would. They needed a convoy to go to one of the races. I think it was France, Messac or somewhere, and they said, would you go? You've had a bit about it, and I said, yeah, and I quite enjoyed it. And then I carried on from then, and I've done for my own federation, which is the Freeboarders Federation, the SMT Combine, the National Flying Club of Great Britain. So I've done a few now. Got quite a few race points under my belt, shall I say?
Where exactly are you located at right now, and what clubs are you racing with?
At the moment, I'm with the Freeboarders Federation. We do all round. We pick up from different areas, all round Heathrow, London area, Surrey, Inner London, Epsom, all different, Richmond, Isleworth, all different places. We pick the birds up on a Friday evening mostly. Every one of them have got an allocated time spot when I'm going to hopefully arrive there, traffic permitting. And then we go there, I pick the birds up. They bring them out to me in their crates. Then we load them, and then the waters are added onto them as we go around each club. Sometimes if it's not overheating, if it's not that hot, then I leave the waters till we do our last pickup and then put all the drinkers on. So I like to travel anywhere I go. Once all the birds are loaded, I like to make sure they've got water, more important than anything else.
With the club that you're doing right now, what's that set up like, a truck and trailer, and how many birds does that hold?
Yeah, we've got an Iveco truck which carries 1,200 birds roughly, and we have a trailer the same size that I used to pull. I haven't used it yet this year. That takes 1,100 birds, so I can take about 2,200 birds on our vehicle. The clubs in the London area they're diminishing. They're slowly, people have, the younger generation are more into computers and playing in the house rather than going outside for pigeon racing. It's hard for younger people to come into the sport now because of the cost. Basically, unless you're brought up around pigeons, I was more or less forced into it. My job when I was a youngster, my job was to help my dad do the pigeons, change their drinkers, change the waters. And each of my brothers, it was their job, before they went out to play on a Saturday, right, just clean one of the sections out in the loft, or just do, we all mucked in together, and we all knew that was our. But then, see, my dad had his own company and quite a successful business. And so I used to work for him when I first got my driving license. And then from April till September, during the racing season, I never had to go work. He supplied me with a van, and my job was to go to his house, pick up the birds, take them to a training point, release them, go back in the afternoon, pick them up again, take them to another training point and release them. And that was my job, which was a brilliant job for me as a 17-year-old. And I've got my own van, and I've got me, doing what I enjoy doing. And then my other brothers used to do another organisation for my dad, because they used to race North and South Road, you see. So my dad was in about 5 clubs. So every weekend he had about four or five races from different clubs. So I was just lucky that I've got 6 brothers, and 4 of us was all involved with the pigeons. And as we all worked for him, summertime, as I said, from April till September, we didn't have to worry about kind of work.
You've been doing the convoy stuff for quite a while then, really.
Well, that's training. I mean, that's training. I mean, I started training. I used to go, and first of all, I used to go with the other guys. If they sort of they needed someone to help them lift things, lift the birds on. I mean, originally, going back when I was a youngster, the birds used to be picked up on a lorry, with great big wicker baskets, and then they was taken to a railway station, and they was all loaded on the railway station, and the railways used to take them, but then they stopped, and then other organisations bought their own transporters. But now it's come a long way since then from putting them on the back of a lorry. Now, obviously, with health and safety and DEFRA and everything else, PETA, you've got to have everything's up together. Look, I mean, there's got to be a certain size crate, so many birds to a crate. They must be able to feed and drink. You must stop every sort of 6 or 7 hours minimum and make sure they got water and have a drink, give them a rest. Before, they was just literally put on the vehicle, put on the train, and away they went.
So on some of those bigger transports, like what is your time frame for how often are you stopping, and are you just doing water only?
When I'm going, I mean, like today, for instance, we had a race this morning. I left this morning at 2 o'clock in the morning, and they was already watered. I got down to the race point by about 4:15. I'll park up, make sure everything's fine. Then I waited for the daylight. Then the birds are all sort of, waking up and getting themselves ready. As soon as the sun came up and the wind was good and it was clear, the visibility was, over 10, 15 miles. And then I have to check the line of flight to make sure there's no other organisations releasing birds that are going to come my way. So, it's quite sort of like I set up a group myself, which is race advisors and convoyers. And I've got about 150 followers now and people on that, all to do with pigeons. And every week they all sort of like log on there and tell me where they are, where their birds are going to, which direction. So we can avoid as much as possible, we can avoid the clashing. And since I set this group up this year, we've had about 16 races, I think, so far, 14, 16 races. And we've had very, very good racing. Because a lot of people have some still haven't joined up with us, but most of the big organisations have joined up with us, and we have got some idea where everyone is. You see, so people ring me from 5 o'clock in the morning. My phone will be ringing. Dom, where are you? Who's with you? Who else is on the site? Which way are they going? What time are they going to liberate? So we can work out times between us, But this morning I released early because I knew most of them start releasing from about 6:30, 7 o'clock onwards, and they wait for it. But I knew where we was this morning at the army camp, it was clear from about 5 o'clock. I was just waiting for the sun to come up. As soon as the sun came up strong enough and the line of flight was clear, I released the birds at I think it's 6:45, 6:45.
That's a lot of coordination with different people. I mean, I never would have thought about that though, with all the different race clubs that are out there doing releases.
You got all the different race points, but they're all quite near each other. And you can have, I mean, sometimes we've had it where I've had to speak to my weatherman, and I've spoke to him, and I've spoke to other organisations, and on the Thursday we've done a pattern, got a map out, and we've done a pattern of where everyone is and where they're going. And some races I've had up to sort of like 15 to 20 organisations crossing our flight path. Well, that could be sort of 10,000 pigeons coming across in all mixing in, and this is why you get losses. So we try and avoid that as much as possible.
So how do you communicate with the race clubs then when it comes time to do the releases?
Right, with the race clubs, when I know that I'm going to release the birds, what I do is I phone our club secretary, and I tell him what my intentions are. Right, everything's clear. Can you just check the last bit of weather down, go on the radar, just check it, make sure there's, no rain coming across, and ring me back. He rings me back, yes, Dom, it's all clear. Then I say to him, right, I will be going at, say, for instance, like this morning, 6:45. Now I tell him that at 6 o'clock. So then 6:15, I'll check with him again. 6:30, I check with him again. And then 6:45, I release. But while I'm checking with him, he's checking with other organisations, and also the other guys that were on the site with me. There was 3 other guys today, 3 other different liberations. They all coordinated with me. When one went at 6:30, I went at 6:45. One went at 7:15. Another went at 7:30. So, and they was going to the West Country. We was flying west to east, and the others was, so none of us. We had a very good race today, put it that way. Good returns, good velocities. They're doing probably nearly 60 mile an hour today. 50, 56, 58 mile an hour. And it wasn't a tailwind, it was a northwest wind. So slightly on their side a little bit. We had good returns. Once I phone him and tell him, right, the birds are going to 6:45, he then informs the secretaries to all of our smaller clubs, and then they phone all the members up. Each club phones its members up, says, right, the birds are up at 6:45. It's a northwest wind. That's all he can tell them, really. He can't see, some of them elaborate a little bit and say, oh, they should be home in an hour and a half. But I don't really like to do that, because if you some people, if you say hour and a half, and an hour and a half they're not home, they're sort of getting a bit panicky. But it might be because the wind has changed. It could be a variable wind en route. It could be the fact that they bumped into something, clashing a little bit with pigeons. Or it could be the fact, like today, they're youngsters. They just want to fly the skies, so they play around a little bit. They don't go directly A to B. But everything is all coordinated. And then obviously they've got the tag on their leg, the ETS tag. And then when they get home, that's set at the club on the Friday night. The clock is ticking from Friday night right the way through. When they get home, it's like a supermarket thing. Like when you go to a supermarket and you scan things, they got a chip in there with a scanner on it, and it beeps, obviously, when the bird lands on the board. It beeps and it records the time.
So when you're calling in though, if they say, hey, there is bad weather coming in, do you just
Right.
wait it out, or
See, I've got a very good. With all people that are doing the convoy, and they've all got a good idea. They haven't just come into it yesterday. Most of us, we sort of like, we're around pigeons. We know, if someone says to me, "Oh, I know already," like if I go by Thursday is my normal last day to cut off. If I think Friday and Saturday is going to be heavy rain at some point, then I say to our members, look, it's got a lot of rain about on Saturday. I think we might as well not basket Friday. We'll basket Saturday evening, and we'll have a Sunday race. And that's what we do sometimes. Other times I've been to places where I've had to hold over. I've had to keep the birds. I've got to make sure I've always got food on. You've got to have. So we might have to hold the birds at the race point, feed and water them on the race point, and keep them overnight. When I was in the south of France one year with the National Flying Club Tarbes, I think I was down there with about 8,000 birds. I had to sit down there because of the heat. I stayed in Tarbes. It was like a holiday for me, 8 days. We were trapped in France for 8 days. We couldn't go anywhere. The French authorities told us not to move the lorries. We had two big Arctics, and they said, do not move the lorries. It was 42 degrees heat-wise. Couldn't get there was nowhere to get out of the sun. So we moved the lorries and put them into like these woods as much as we could. So we kept one side cool all the time. And that was what we done. And we kept opening up the sides on one side to try and shade them from the heat and the direct sunshine, but they still had the heat there, but I was there for literally 8 days.
those transports are pretty well ventilated too, right?
Oh yeah. The National Flying Club one has got electronic timing fans. It's got humidity controls. It's got everything. Everything that you need for them sort of long distance races. That transport has got. It's got a sleeping accommodation for me. I've got microwave, television, blooming fridge, everything. So they're fully loaded with everything. They cater for not only the convoy. The driver has got his own sleeping compartment. I've got my own sleeping compartment, and the birds have got their sleeping compartment.
If you get stuck out there with some weather, that sounds like you got at least a pretty well set up. But yeah, you plan ahead as much as you can, but yeah, weather can change pretty fast.
If we know that it's going to be rain, which sometimes we even cancel races. But what we do now in our federation, we give it till Thursday morning. If by Thursday morning the weather's been sort of not very good all the week, we've had storms or rain, and it's still like that, and the forecast is showing us it's going to be rain on Saturday, rain. But then we'll have a discussion. We've got 5 members that are sort of like a transport race committee, and I'll talk to them and say, right, what do you think? What do you think? And I'll take a majority. And if 3 of them say, well, I think we should cancel, then we cancel. If 2 of them say, well, I think we should cancel, and I think we should go, and the other sort of 3 think that we should go, and I think we should go, then we go. And then 9 times out of 10, when we have gone, we have got a a lot of other clubs have cancelled, and we've managed to get a liberation on that day. And then after the event, everyone's saying, "Oh, Three Borders done well. They had a race, blah blah. We should have gone. We should have gone." But they would have only been too quick to say if something had gone wrong at our end, and we hadn't. Well, I told you, they shouldn't have gone. We knew they weren't going to get a race, but it's a gamble you take. But obviously, the pigeon welfare has got to come first. It doesn't make no
Right.
difference, what the members think. At the end of the day, I get when I'm on race points, I've had members phoning me up. Oh, the other one so and so's gone already. They're only 5 miles down the road from you. Why are you still sitting there? But if I don't think it's right, I won't. No one to tell me to go. I won't go. I won't liberate the birds unless I'm 100% confident in my own mind that they're all, not one of the birds, but all the birds are going to get home. They don't always all get home, but in my opinion, when I let them go, if they're fit and they're healthy and they're motivated, they should all get home. I'll give them the best possible start. The liberation point is the most important start for the pigeons. If the pigeons get a good start when you release them, then you can get you're going to guarantee you're going to get a fairly good race. Obviously, the further afield you go, once you start getting over that channel, you've got all sorts of things. You still got to negotiate everything, but I've got guys that have got to try and negotiate from, say, like if they're going to come in on the Cornwall end, where they go over the Cherbourg Peninsula from France and over the channel, and they're going to come in. I've got to have guys in Cornwall that can tell me what the weather's like in Cornwall. If they go further around and they're going to come in across, say, like the Isle of Wight and the Guernsey and places like that, I've got to have people that tell me what the weather's like up there, because that all depends on what time I let them go. You see, from France, if it's a real hot weather and we're say they've got the shortest flyers might have 450 miles to fly in the National Flying Club. The longest flyers could be 700 miles, which is a hell of a difference in the heat. So therefore, you've got to negotiate. You've got to think, right, hold on, what wind is it? If it was, say, a southerly wind, that's a tailwind, so it's going to push them on. Right, let's look at liberating tomorrow morning at 5:30, or as soon as it's light, and you've got a liberation sky, liberate as quick as possible. If it's not that sort of wind and it's a nose wind, then you've got to renegotiate and think, right, what time should we go? You can't let them go in at lunchtime because that's the hottest part of the day. So then you've got to think, right, we'll let them go at 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the hopefully that they're going to fly for about 4 or 5 hours, then stop, land somewhere on buildings or whatever, rehydrate, lay there overnight, and then first thing in the morning they're going to get up and go. You want them to stop about 200 miles short of the shoreline, because if they see the boats in the distance with the lights on, the pigeons will actually fly in the dark and try and fly to the boats.
Oh, just going after the lights, huh?
Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
When you're traveling with all these pigeons and you're crossing borders and stuff like that, do you ever have any issues?
Now it's come that with all this paperwork, before Brexit, we didn't have any problems whatsoever. Now the EU have brought all these different rules out, and this bird flu things, and also the paperwork that they want to see. We've raced pigeons in France since 1860, I think it was something like that. With the kings and queens, obviously they was the patron up until Queen Elizabeth died. King Charles, he didn't want to be the patron of the racing pigeons, but it was always the RPRA, which was the Royal Racing Pigeon Association. And the kings and queens, right throughout the ages, have all been a patron, because of the pigeons being in the war and everything else. The Queen had lofts at Sandringham up to until the Queen Elizabeth, till she died. And then all this Brexit things came out with the about they want paperwork for this and paperwork, and it was a hell of a struggle to get the birds back over the water again. But now they've managed to get all the paperwork. But you've got to have veterinary surgeons at the basketing places. You've also got to meet them again at the docks, and they've got to sign the pigeons onto the boat for the docks to pass them. And then when you get to the other side, you've got to make sure every bit of paperwork is in order on the French side, because otherwise they won't let you go through.
So they are doing it that way with the vets. They actually have to have a vet sign off on all those
Oh
birds.
yeah. You have to have it. You have to pay. Every marking station has to have a vet there when you're going abroad to make sure that everything's checked and the vet checks everything. It's all, and yet they've raced since 1860 something. They've never had none of that. But then suddenly, the last couple of years, they've had to do it all. It's just new rulings they bring out. There's nothing you can say or do. You either comply or you don't send. It's as simple as that, and they won't let you go abroad unless you've got everything. Or the pigeons have got to make sure you've got the vaccination. You've got to have a CPH number. You've got to be registered to say that you're a bird keeper. Anything over, I think it's 10 birds, you've got to have to be registered. Even if you've got just, you've got 10 budgerigars, you've got to be registered now. You've got to have this CPH number. Even if you've got fancy birds, if you've got, uh, dove release birds, 6 or 7, you've got to have the CPH number. If you haven't got that, then you just cannot go abroad. They won't let you go. The only place you can go abroad really is without that. And then there's still checks at the docks both ends, and that's we back flying back now into Guernsey. We can race from Guernsey, the Channel Islands.
What are some of the biggest distance races that you've done with doing the convoy work?
Distance racings I've done is probably going to somewhere like Tarbes, Po, places like that. Probably 600 miles.
So some of the different convoy setups, what are some of the biggest releases? How many birds have you done?
Yeah, the biggest releases I've done is it's probably I'm trying to think now, 10, 12,000 birds.
Really? Wow.
We've been to France quite a few times with 10 and 12,000 birds. I'm trying to think. When we went to Guernsey one year, we had a massive release from Guernsey, the Channel Islands. We had 2 Arctics there, both full up with pigeons. The press come down, the radio people come down, the television came down. The whole island virtually turned up to where we was releasing the pigeons because for one thing, we had the Queen's pigeons on board. They all wanted to know where the Queen's pigeons was, and obviously, we just said they're in the lorry, and that's it. They're in one of the crates. But they was just fascinated to see the release, and like when the photographers was all there and the press, I said to him, "You've got to stand back," and they was about 40 foot away from the vehicle, and I said, "Look, listen, you're going to have to go further back," and it's trying to get people to move back away. When you think we've got a whole beach full up with people, families, everything, all wanting to see the birds. I want them to see them, enjoy them, but at the same time, I want them to be safe. So we had to try and put cordons up to stop people coming into the cordon. The guys was on wall. I said, listen, don't stand on the walls because the pigeons will come towards you. When I let them go, it's a mass release. They're all going to come out both sides together and they're going to come towards you. No, we'll be okay. What happened? One of the guys was standing right up on the wall. We had all the cameras set up. When the birds come out, he had to jump off the wall into the beach to avoid the pigeons because they was going straight towards him.
That's something I feel like with even if it's a small race club doing a small release, they should really tell the locals about it and get more people out there. People love watching it. I mean, it's like you said, the news is out there. You see the videos on social media, they get thousands of views. It's a good way to advertise.
I can send you videos, what I've got on my things, of the National Flying Club Liberation, where the people come for miles because it's the National Flying Club of England and they want to see the pigeons. Great big white transporters, they got gold wings on them that all electronic. They lift up, and it's something out the state of the art, and everything, as I say, everything is in pristine condition. And people want to come and sort of look at it, and they want their photo taken by the transporter. They want to look at the birds. They want to talk about the birds, and it's nice, and that gets people a little bit interested. But I'm afraid it's only once every couple of weeks that we're at them sort of. I might be at Guernsey one week, then I might not go back there for another sort of 2 months, or maybe not till the next year.
Yeah.
And people move on and things like that. But it's amazing the amount of people and different areas when you go, even in England and that, people want to come and, they say, come up to you, oh, what time are you letting the birds go? And if you've got a rough idea, they come back and they wait till you let the birds go, and they want to see the birds coming out and going, And I think it's a nice it's a nice feeling when everything goes right, when you press the buttons and all the cages drop, all the fronts drop, and all the birds come out. But it's a terrible feeling when there's loads of people videoing you, recording you, cameras everywhere, and you press that button, and some of the cages don't open straight away, and then you're trying to run in there to to hook them and pull them down, and that because even with the best will in the world and the most up to date release mechanisms, it's a mechanical failure. You can't stop it. You know,
Right.
it's a wonderful sight to see them all come out. It's you know, and I mean, one of the races, one of the guys, they said to me, "Oh, can we put some drones up?" And I said, "Well, they'd have to be a bit away from the birds because I'd be worried." And they put the drones way up in the sky. And when the birds come out, it actually kept the drone took photos of them coming out, and he put it in slow motion as they came out. And it was when he showed me the video afterwards, I said, "Oh, you've got to send me that, please." And the guy sent me it. And it was such a wonderful sight to see, you know, the drones so high up, and the birds come out and they just sort of parted and then slowly going round in a circle a few times till they got their bearings. Then they all left the site, you know, a lot of them leave together, like, you know, which was nice.
Oh, that's cool. I love watching the videos of the really big releases like that, like you're saying, the thousands of birds at a time, just a cloud. You know, they swarm out like a cloud. It's
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, you know, there is bigger organ. I mean, the NIPA, the Up North Combine, you know, some of the bigger ones that they sort of like, you know, they do sort of like 20, 30,000 pigeons. Thailand, they do loads. They release them off from boats in the water and things like that. I don't really like that. I don't agree with that. At least when we release them on the land, you know, if there's anything that they want to they can land on the transport, or they can turn around and, you know, head back a little bit or something, they can land. But when they're out in the water, I'm afraid if they you know, if something goes a bit wrong or something, and when they're flying across the water, they fly very low to the water. It gets a bit rough, the seas, which I've seen them out there when they do get rough, and the birds are going to get pulled under the water, like, you know. That's when you see the sad side of it. You know, it's like with horse racing, when a horse falls on the jumps, you feel sorry for the horse, and, you know, obviously they break a leg or something, and they have to be put down. But it's a terrible feeling, but it's a great feeling when the horse wins the race. You know.
right. So with all the different years and all the different releases and everything that you've done, is there any memorable experiences that have stood out?
Every release is like it's like my first release, to be honest with you, because I get so hyped up even after all these years. I'm so keen on getting it right, making sure all the birds you got, once you release them, you got to check every one of the crates. Obviously, you're running around looking to make sure, because some of the birds, especially with younger birds, they don't come out straight away. Some of them stay in the crate, so you have to get in and drive them out so they catch up with the others. So, you know, basically, it's very exhilarating, and how can I put it? It's exciting for me. Every race is different. Every race has got its own sort of feeling, if you know what I mean. Obviously, when I was doing the national flying club races, I'm representing England, Great Britain. You know, you've got people wanting to, obviously in France and all that, they're all watching for the pigeons and everything. But it's such a great feeling. I don't care who wins the race. I just like to know that the pigeons are getting home. And even now, in our federation, it doesn't bother me. I've got a lot of friends in the federation, and obviously I like to see them win, but I'm not interested really who wins the race. All I'm interested in doing is, if they send 20 pigeons, I want to know, have you got 20 pigeons home? You know, that gives me more of a buzz, and I get a feeling of satisfaction when I know, like today, we had a great race today. I think there was only one of our clubs out of all our clubs that sent today that didn't have a very good race. Well, I'm afraid there was only a couple of members that sent there, and the only thing I can put it down to, and I told them, and they didn't like it, because everyone else got near virtually, or they got all their birds home. I said to them, "Your birds couldn't have been right. They wasn't prepared right for this race today. You know, it was a 80-mile race. They should have easy done it. But if they're not, if they're young birds, if they're not prepared, and they haven't got a line of flight, then they go elsewhere, and then they work their way back late today or tomorrow morning, hopefully, you know." I suppose if I really wanted to sort of pick out ones, I would say like Guernsey. When I was at Guernsey with the National Flying Club, no one else wanted to release that day. They was all holding over, and I knew if we're in Guernsey, you can only release at certain times, and also you can only get back certain days. And I worked everything out when we was there with my race advisor, and my weatherman, and I said, "Listen," I said, "we'll be able to get a liberation. It's a strong westerly wind home. The birds are going to, you know, they're going to march on, and we'll get a race." And then a couple of our the committee, this is one of the reasons why they said no, keep the birds there, you know. And I thought no, I said no, I'm the convoy, I'll make my decision later on. They said no, the cut-off time is 11 o'clock. Well, I took no notice of that, and I think it was 1 o'clock I released the birds, and they was all more or less saying, right, you've released them, we're not supporting you, we're not backing it, you've released them, it's down to you. So I said, okay, fair enough, you know. And then when I phoned the secretary, Sid Barker at the time, when I phoned him up afterwards, I said to Sid, I said, everything all right? He went, yeah. He said, I got one complaint. I said, what's that? He said, we've had so many birds, people phoning in, telling us they've got their pigeons. He said, it's been overloading the phones. I've had to bring extra people in. And that was a great thing for me to hear. And then suddenly all the people that are saying to me, I shouldn't have let them go. Oh, we knew you'd make the right choice. We knew we'd get them home. You know, we knew you'd be the man for the job and all this whole nonsense. But at the time, they completely disowned me. And there was 4 other organisations there with us. And they said, when they knew what a good race we had, they said, oh, we should have gone. But they left it too late, and they had to keep their birds on their lorries from the Saturday when we let go until the following Tuesday or Wednesday before they could let go. So they was in the basket for another 5 days, and they didn't have to. If they'd have just done that little bit of forward planning and be prepared to take a little chance, you know.
Excellent. Well, we're coming up against the clock here, but Dom, I really appreciate your time coming on and talking with us and sharing your stories. This has been really fun.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you. Anytime, as I say, you know, if you drop me a link sometime, I'll get some of these old videos out.
Oh, that'd be great.
Of the National Flying Club, and I'll send them to you. I mean, and you can see how they're all done professionally. The videos, there's music playing to them. There's, you know, the pickups. You see all the pickups going around the clubs. All the national marking stations, the birds being marked, and then you see the liberation, and then you see the winner being photographed. You know, it's a really good sort of nice feeling, put it that way.
Yeah, those are great videos to watch. I'll definitely get in touch, and we'll be sharing some of those on our social medias and stuff too.
Excellent.
Yeah, those are excellent videos. So, Dominic, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to another ad-free, listener-requested episode of the All About Pigeons podcast. If you like the show and want to help us keep it going, as well as supporting our other pigeon promotional work, head over to our website at pigeonpod, that's pigeonpod.com, and make a donation. We are a non-profit public charity, so once you've made your donation, you'll receive an email with a tax-deductible receipt. If you can't donate today, please help us out by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you listen. Any episode requests, upcoming pigeon shows, competition results, or you just want to send a shout out for a club or a friend to be read on air, just email it over to staff@pigeonpod.com. And make sure to check out the one-of-a-kind pigeon t-shirts, hats, and other swag at our website, pigeonpod.com. Thanks again for listening, and remember, together the hobby thrives. Support each other and enjoy your pigeons.